Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe. Forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempest rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whate'er may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fit it for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and o'er thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely, assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O man of God, have done with lesser things, give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O man of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O man of God, the church for you doth wait, her strength unequal to her task. Rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod, as brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God. Good evening.
Edify.
How is everyone doing today?
We have Reba and
Darlene.
Darlene.
Hello, Darlene and Sister Reba.
Welcome to night one of our gospel edification meeting.
Welcome.
Please take a moment. We want as many people to see this as possible. So if you feel comfortable and you're able to share this, please share it.
If
Uh,
you deem this video so worth it, just share it, please. We
yeah.
appreciate it.
How about number 68 in the red to start off?
Number 68, eh? Reba says, hope you're doing okay. I've been praying for you and your family. I love you, sister, and I'm so sorry you're going through all of this. Yes, our prayers go out to Sister Darlene.
Yeah. We're gonna go ahead after this song, get into a lesson, and probably if we have time after the fact, hang out and chat. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds like a format which we never come up with.
Well,
We never come up with formats. What number did you say?
68.
68.
Darlene says, thank you so much. It's hard, but we looking for God to help with our
Help
heart.
our hearts mend.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Lord, we come before thee now. At thy feet we humbly bow. Oh, do not our suit disdain. Shall we seek thee, Lord, in vain? Shall we seek thee, Lord, in vain? Lord, on thee our souls depend. In compassion now descend. Fill our hearts with thy rich grace. Tune our lips to sing thy praise. Tune our lips to sing thy praise. Grant that all may seek and find thee, God supremely kind. Heal the sick, the captive free. Let us all rejoice in thee. Let us all rejoice in thee.
All right. Tenny Ward's here. Good evening.
Sonia, good to see you. She greets Darlene and everybody. And Rebus says, nice haircut, O'Shea. Thank you. Dad did it. Darlene says, I like your new logo.
Thank you. Yes, we did
She
change our
noticed.
branding. Uh, we're working on a new intro video.
Yep. We decided we're getting close to our first year mark. It's time to kind of shift the logos
Yep. Gradually.
gradually. So we did it all in one day. And Reba greets Sister Tanya, and Darlene greets Sister Tanya and asks her how she's doing. And Reba says, "Hi, CJ and Oshea. Preach the word." That we do.
Hi, so this meeting is going to be continuing a Character of a Man series. And by that we mean a human, a person, mankind, because we have men and women of faith. And tonight is going to start a 3-night series on Sarah, a woman of faith. Now we don't, I don't want to give too much away for Sarah, but I will say this. Tonight, tomorrow night, and Friday night, we will be engaging in the study of Sarah. And from Friday night Thursday night and Friday night, Levi should be back with us. I appreciate us filling in for the first night of this meeting.
My pleasure to be here to assist. Yes, you should have your normal co-hosts tomorrow and the day after. So, we start here looking at Sarah, our pillar of faith, mother of many nations. This was the title that God gave her, one of them. Am I supposed to bring up? I'm not supposed to bring up Genesis 17, am I? You said
So,
we'd get to that later.
yeah, we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Go ahead through your outline and I'll move the slides as you go through.
So, in Genesis, we're introduced to the pillar of faith that we are going to be talking about in this series of lessons, Sarah. We begin in Genesis 11, 27 through 29, which I will read and have. Genesis 11, 27 through 29. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abraham and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. So we have here Sarai, who later becomes Sarah, which CJ will cover, is Abraham's wife. She is our pillar of faith today that we will be looking at. We are introduced them, and this notable person, Abram's wife, Sarai. Many times, we in general, both us and other people, we tend to get a skewered picture of the Bible. We sometimes fall into the groove of thinking that we only see men of faith. I mean, you think of people of faith, you think of Abraham, Noah, Paul, Peter. Those are the first people that you think of. But in the pages of the Bible, we also see women are just as important and stand radiant in faith's Hall of Fame. Just to list a few names, we have Sarai, we have Deborah, we have Esther, and a few others. There are women in the Bible. We just tend to get a little bit of a skewered look.
That's right.
CJ?
Sorry.
CJ, there you go.
Until we begin looking at Sarah as a pillar of faith, this towering example, we need to get a grasp of her background. Where does Sarai later becoming Sarah come from, and what is her background? First, in Genesis 20, verse 12, we read that Sarah is actually the daughter of Terah. Genesis 20, verse 12. And now indeed she is my sister, she is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became uh became my wife. And so this is the account in which said Abraham at this time says, say to the Egyptians, this is the second time in Genesis 20, say to the people, you are my sister. And it's partially true that Sarai was Abraham's sister. She was Abraham's half sister. Her father's name was Terah, and she didn't share the same mother. And so we read that she is the daughter of Terah. We also know that Sarah is 10 years younger than Abram. We know this from Genesis 17 and verse 17, where we read, um, then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And, and shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? So we see from that text, Sarah is 10 years younger than Abraham. There's this age gap that we see there. And then next, we come along in uh, the text, obviously, that Sarai is not only the daughter of Terah, 10 years younger than Abram, but Sarai marries Abram in Genesis 11:35. Genesis 11:35. Let's see. Genesis,
There is no 35.
Genesis 11. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. 28. And
20.
Ram died before his father Terah in his native land in the Ur of Chaldees. Then Abram and Nahor took wives. The, the name of um, verse 29. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. And so we see from that text that Sarah is uh, Sarah is Abraham's wife. Also, we see from the text of Genesis that she is very beautiful even when she is 60 years old when she left Haran. The text describes her as being beautiful. Notice Genesis chapter 12, verse 4, and again in 11 through 14. So Abraham departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And we jump down to verse 11. And it came to pass when she was come near to enter into Egypt that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman. She is beautiful. She's fair to look upon. Uh, therefore it shall come, verse 12, the pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me. She was still drop dead gorgeous at the age of 65.
She
And
looked good enough to kill over.
yes, and so she is 65 when she left her. And we know that I missed this point. In Genesis 12:4, the text says, Abram departed as the Lord had spoken to him, and Lot was with him. And Abraham was 75 years old. If Sarai is 10 years younger than Abraham, then that would make Sarai 65 years old when she leaves with her husband to go to the promised land. And then also we know from the narrative that her name was changed from Sarai to Sarah. Notice in Genesis 17, 15, and 16, and I remember I have this one up on the screen. And God said unto Abraham, As to Sarah thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and moreover I will give thee a son of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she will be a mother of many nations. Kings of people shall be of her. So this promise that we're going to talk about this meeting starts with Sarai's name change in Genesis 17.
And now we have when reality conflicts with faith. We have the reality of the situation here. God had promised to bring children to Abraham from Sarah. But here we have reality kind of fighting with the promise. Here in 16:1, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. Sarai was by this time a fair amount old, and she still didn't have any children, and Abraham and her were getting a little impatient, as you'll find a little bit farther down the text. And they ended up trying to help God along in his promise of children. But in 15:6 through 4, or 4 through 6, pardon me, we have God's promise. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he shall come forth out of thine own bowels, shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, Look now toward the heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. This is God talking, telling Abraham that out of Abraham's own bowels will his promised heir come. And through this promised heir, he will have seed as unnumberable as the stars. And in verse 6, we have, and he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. Abraham believed God. Even though the chances of childbirth at this age were quite slim and unheard of, Abraham still ended up believing when the Lord said, Sarai can bear him children. And then we have their response. Genesis 16:2, 17:17, 18:10 through 12, and 21 verse 6. Let's start with Genesis 16:2. This was their response to the promise. And Sarai said unto Abraham, Behold, now the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my handmaid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarai. We see here reality is kind of poking at Sarai and Abraham. They're getting a little impatient and trying to help God along. Sarai tells Abraham, have children by my handmaid here, that way I can claim them as my children. And Abraham hearkened unto the voice of Sarai. We have reality fighting with faith, but yet, what's our next verse? 17:17. We move on to 17:17. And Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, that is 90 years old, bear? They couldn't, when God gave him the promise, Abraham fell on his face and laughed. It wasn't the norm, you could say, for Sarah at the age of 90 to be able to bear. That shouldn't be. It hadn't happened before. And Abraham even said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto me? I'm 100 years old. We're a little past our prime here. Their reaction was a little lacking in faith. And in 18:10 through 12, we have, and he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. How far was I supposed to carry that? I just forgot. You're muted. You can't tell me.
12.
12. Okay. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? We have that God reaffirms his promise. According to the time of life, he says, I'm going to return, and Sarah, thy wife, shall have a son. God directly promised that Sarah was going to have a child while she was yet well stricken in years, even after the way of the women ceased to be with Sarah. It just, to Abraham and Sarah, from their standpoint, it looked like the chances of it happening were very slim. None. And so Sarah reacted and laughed within herself. You can see her laughing in disbelief here. Really? Shall I, being an old gal, have the pleasure, my Lord, also being old? My husband's old as well. Those just aren't conducive to childbearing. And the last verse of their response, Genesis 21, verse 6. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear me will laugh with me.
Read verse 5 with
Yeah, it looks like it needed that. And Abraham.
Really 4 through 6.
Okay. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. Then we have, and Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. This was an outstanding miracle. Abraham and his wife had a child at the age of 100, that being Abraham, and 90, being Sarah. God's promise came true. As we see, when God promises something, he's not going to forget that, and he may take a while. He will do it in his own time. He doesn't need help. Abraham was 100 years old, and Sarah was 90 when she bare their son Isaac. God, the physical nature of mankind cannot stop God from being able to accomplish his promises. And God's response, we have that in 17, 18 through 22. 18. And Abraham said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenants will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year. And he left off from talking with him, and God went up from Abraham. God made true his promise. God says, indeed, I will. Sarah, thy wife, shall bear a son indeed. God promised it. Sarah shall bear a son. And we see that after the incident with Hagar, they left off trying to help God along. They started trusting and having faith. And God's promise was through Sarah and Isaac, making that great nation that he promised to Abraham.
Right. And I just want to add before I do mine, the point we're really getting at here in Genesis 17 is verse 18, God says, Oh, that Ishmael will walk before you. Just take Ishmael. Ishmael's the one, God. He's gonna walk before you. And God said, No. Your wife shall bear thee a son, just like I told you. With him, I'm gonna establish my covenant. That's God's response to this situation. No, you're not changing the plan. It's
God
not
had his own plan and his own promise, and he was going to carry it out his way.
right. We're doing things my way. It's not going to be through Ishmael. It's going to be through your son Isaac. Hey, Teresa. So we see Uh, the, in the life of Sarah, we see faith working through submission. Also, not only do we see reality conflicting with faith, we see faith through submission. For example, Sarah left with Abraham without question. Notice in 1 Peter 3 and verse 5. 1 Peter 3 5. For after this manner, in the old time, the holy women also, who trusted in God, adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and ye are not afraid with any amazement. You, the daughters of Abraham, if you submit to your husbands, just like Abraham did, just like Sarah did with Abraham. That's one of the reasons why she is a woman of faith. She left with Abraham. A lot of the times we emphasize Abraham leaving home. Well, Sarah submitted to his will, submitted to his lordship. And Peter says, you women, and we're going to talk about this on Friday night more, but you women submit as well. So she is an example of the faith that comes through submission. She left with Abraham without question. She submitted to him. This is in direct contrast with the wife of Proverbs. The wife of Proverbs is a quarrelsome woman, a woman who creates troubles and difficulty. For example, notice Proverbs 21:9. We'll just look at a few places in Proverbs. It is better to dwell in a corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. Sarah wasn't like that. She was submissive in chapter, and go down to verse 19. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. This is not Sarah. Sarah exemplified the faith that only comes through submission. And then again in chapter 25 and verse 24, we read of this type of a wife. It is similar language here. It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. This is again contrasted with Sarah. 27 verse 15 is the last passage we'll look at in the Proverbs. Notice how she is described here. 15. A continual dropping in a very rainy day, and a contentious woman are alike. Sarah could have been like that drop of water just nagging, drip, 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 drip. Doesn't that drive you nuts? But she had the faith to leave home and submit to Abraham in, uh, in faith by leaving with him. Sarah believed God in his promise. Yes, she tried to help God along, as O'Shea was pointing out just a moment ago, but in the end, when we get to Genesis 21 1 through 3, she conceived a son. She received power to conceive, the Hebrew writer says. We'll look at that more tomorrow. But Sarah believed God in his promise. Notice Genesis 21 1 through 3. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bore to him, Isaac. She believed God's promises. She conceived a son. Yes, faith can conflict with reality, but that doesn't mean we have to fail. We can still overcome. We can still have the faith that Sarah had through her submission. We have seen tonight that Sarah laughed in the face of the promise. We saw how all of these different characters laughed. Abraham laughed. There was disbelief on account of Abraham. Sarah laughed in chapter 18, 10 through 12. And we see the irony in that laughter, for the word Isaac literally means laughter. Isaac was born out of laughter, and because of their lack of faith, Isaac is a reminder of what they had to go through. His name means laughter. And in chapter 18 and verse 14, we have an important question. Is anything too hard for the Lord? No. If he can make a barren woman bear children, he can do anything. Notice chapter 18 and verse 14. Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Nothing is too hard for the Lord. That is shown here in the story, the account of Sarah, a woman of faith. Since Sarah left Ur with Abraham, God has proved faithful, never deserting them. Because Sarah had experienced God's continual care for her and Abraham, she counted him faithful in his promises, and she became the mother of many nations, through her son Isaac. And so that's how this story begins of this great hall, this great woman of faith. Through her faith, through her lack of faith, and eventually through her faith, she became this great matriarch of her family. And that's what we're going to look at next week in tomorrow.
She became a great pillar of faith.
So we hope you will be back tomorrow night for our gospel meeting night two as we consider how Sarah was the matriarch of the family.
I believe.
Is there any comments?
What?
Let's
Examine the comments.
yeah.
Okay, so starting where we left off, Darlene says it's been so nice to be a part of this. You guys work so hard in what you do. We thank you, Sister Darlene. We much appreciate having you here.
Thank you.
And Randy says Levi looks younger tonight. Yeah, I reckon he does. uh, Reba says hi, Sister Mary. And Sam says hello. Teresa says, hey, family. Sam says, sometimes it take time for us to know that God will come through for us. We being slow at heart because we see things as what control we have. And that is very true there, Sam. It can take time for us to click, as we could say. Sam also says, Sarah to thought that since she wasn't barren yet, she thought that God would do it through haggle, but God does it his way and not our way. Sarah thought she could haggle her way, help God along. But God does not need any help. And Sam says, Job's wife cursed her husbands. She told Job to curse God and die. Teresa says, your haircut looks nice. O'Shea, your haircut looks nice. Thank you, Sister T. Reba says, thank you for a great lesson. I hope you all have a blessed night and love you all. You are welcome. I hope you'll tune in with us tomorrow night as we get a little bit more in depth on the character of Sarah.
Yes.
And Teresa says, I don't see none comments.
Probably because you're on my page.
That would do it.
We're streaming on my page as well as CEM for this meeting too.
Yep.
So is there any questions y'all have? We got about 12 minutes. We can sing a couple songs or answer a few questions.
I noticed how there in that, I don't remember which verse, but God says, I will bless her twice. Not just once. He says, I will bless her twice.
What was that?
Oh, let me try to think of. When he calls her the mother of nations. Which verse was that?
17.
17 was that?
Yeah, I think.
We bounced around between so many verses, I got lost in that one. Not 17.
15.
15.
15 to 17.
Yeah, here in 16. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. kings of people shall be of her. God says, I will bless Sarah twice. He only has to say it once to be true, but he says it twice. She became a mother of nations, and she had kings of peoples come from her. Just that one pillar of faith there with Abraham ended up having kings in her lineage.
That's right.
Dad is back. Says Sam, she didn't curse Job or God. She didn't suggest, but she did suggest Job should.
Right.
Yes, Job's wife told Job that he should curse God and die. That was her words of encouragement during Job's trials.
Yeah.
Curse God and die. So that's what Job's wife told Job.
Number 5.
Teresa says, thank you, love you all. And she gives us a song request. How Great Thou Art.
Number 5.
Number 5. Where did I put my song? There it is.
Yep. That's right.
That is right, Randy. Reality may have been struggling with faith, but when God promises something, reality has to shift a little bit.
Yep.
Number 5, was it?
Yep. Number 5. A great thou art.
O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, that are throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Through the woods and forest ways I wander, and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees. When I look down from lofty grandeur, and hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And when I think that God his Son sent him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on the cross my burden gladly we buried. He bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When her shall come with shout of acclamation, and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration, and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Dad says, love the new logo.
Yes, we do too.
Darlene already said that, Dad.
Yep.
And he declares a heart war there on Facebook.
Hot war. Well, we hope that you been edified tonight by our study as we start off this 3-day meeting. Remember, we have tomorrow night at 9:20. We will have another lesson regarding this, and then again on Friday night. So I hope you will be with us as we continue this gospel meeting with you. Thank you all. And remember at CEM, we want to do 3 things. We want to first and foremost glorify God. We want to edify the saints, and we want to answer any spiritual questions you may have. Thank you all, and God bless.
Thank you all for being here. We certainly hope that you'll come back tomorrow to join CJ and Levi as they take a little bit deeper of a walk into the character of Sarah. Till we meet again, love you all. God bless. Bye-bye.